These predictions are bold.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today's show, we talk about how Austin Simmons is set to be the SEC Newcomer of the Year and lead the conference in multiple statistical categories in his first season. His talent is so undeniable that could propel him into major Heisman candidacy in 2026. And also, before I go on my surgery hiatus next week, I'm making bold predictions this spring for Ole Miss and a few other SEC teams. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. Don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offer even more perspectives on college football, the SEC, and all things Ole Miss. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. So we are a little bit over a week away from my surgery hiatus. I'm expecting to be out about 3 to 6 weeks, but depending on side effects, it could be longer than that, which made me think I'm not going to be around for those May and June shows potentially, to where you're doing things like bold predictions. You're trying to find content all over the place. And this being a slow time in the schedule with Lane Kiffin speaking today and Steve Wiltfong putting in a crystal ball or RPM or whatever you call that for Landon Duckworth to Ole Miss. We'll talk about all of that tomorrow. But for today, I wanted to do some bold predictions, some things that are realistic. They absolutely can happen. They might not be likely to happen, but they are possible to happen. And we're going to start with Austin Simmons, the young quarterback out of South Florida. I think he has the potential to be an SEC Newcomer of the Year type player, leading the Southeastern Conference in several statistical categories. I don't think he'll be first team All SEC in his sophomore season, because All SEC is kind of a popularity contest. Look for somebody like Diego Pavia, and good grief, if Arch Manning even has a relatively good season, he'll be on the list as well. Nico Iamaleava, obviously he's going to stick up. Maybe the guy at Georgia has a year, or DJ Lagway is more healthy than is being let on. If any of those happen, they're probably going to get the benefit of the doubt over Austin Simmons, even though Austin Simmons is going to lead in many of the statistical categories. And that is because he's a 1-1 level talent. Everybody talks about Arch Manning and DJ Lagway and Nico Iamaleava and Jackson Arnold down at Auburn and John Mateer at Oklahoma. All of those guys. Austin Simmons, I would take Austin over every one of them. And it's because of the talent and the ability that Austin Simmons has. We've seen Austin in only one series, and that was enough to make everybody super excited for what he could be, for what he could do, for the plays that he could make, the processing ability, everything. But in this popularity contest, I don't know if he would be able to eke out somebody that's already been anointed as a savior of a potential program. But I do think Austin Simmons has a chance to be the Newcomer of the Year. When you look at the new quarterbacks that are popping around, the Zach Calzadas, the Arch Mannings, honestly, and those guys, I think that Austin has a chance to take that because he's going to have outstanding numbers. Now, we always made fun a little bit of Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, not in a mean way or anything like that, but he was a very duck and chuck quarterback. He liked to throw the ball downfield. He was Kenny Stabler's. He was the 1977 Oakland Raiders. He was Al Davis modeled to throw the ball down the field and try and make big plays. Austin Simmons is not that guy. Austin Simmons has elite processing ability when he gets to the line of scrimmage. He can roll over what the defense's back is doing. Whenever you roll coverage, he picks it up very quickly. He knows exactly where to go with the football. And this is an advantage that he has over almost everybody. Sometimes it looks like he's going immediately to the checkdowns, and you're wondering why he did it so early. It's because his processing ability was so fast, it got him to that point. Whatever they were trying to do was not available to him, but he knew to immediately take the check down, and he probably got an extra 5 yards. Matt Corral and Elijah Moore had a little bit of that sixth sense in 2020 as well. A lot of really quick, really short passes when Matt realized that he needed to get the ball out of his hand pretty quickly because the play that was called was probably not favorable to start with. But Austin Simmons with Caden Lee, who is kind of his boy, every time you see him on campus, he's being photographed with Caden Lee, which means he has a relationship really similar to what Jackson Dart had with Trey Harris. And that means that Caden Lee is going to put up massive statistics this fall. They know each other. They work out together. They're probably throwing together nearly every single day. They're boys. Caden Lee is going to put up huge numbers. And when you start to look at that, and when you take into account that Luke Haas and Daquan Wright's on the field, two weapons at tight ends, the fact that Ole Miss is going to run a lot of 12 personnel, you can see where mismatches are going to be set up in the Ole Miss receiver game, which means that Austin Simmons is going to have a lot of chances to pad his stats. I haven't even talked about Deshaun Stribling. I haven't even talked about Harrison Wallace. I haven't even talked about Caleb Odom. Austin Simmons has a ton of chances to pad his stats with the weapons he has on the outside and handle the middle of the field with what's going to be available on the inside at the tight end position, at the slot position. So Austin Simmons putting up those numbers, and I'm assuming that Ole Miss is going to win a good number of games. I'm expecting somewhere around 9 and 10 games this year, the way the schedule falls and everything that's going on. Whenever you look at that with the numbers, if he wins 10 games and Ole Miss goes to the playoffs, he's going to have the numbers to where he would be a first-team All-SEC. Now, like I said, it's a popularity contest, and the coaches and the media would probably give it to DJ Lagway or Arch Manning because they already decided that those dudes are going to be saviors. But Austin Simmons has the special ability to really take Ole Miss to the next level. This is the top level of talent that you can get. As far as talent goes, other than Eli Manning, maybe, I don't know if there's been another quarterback that's had Austin Simmons' talent, his measurables, just a cannon for an arm, 4.5 runner, somebody that's 6'4". He has literally everything. He has all of the cognitive stuff, everything you want to do. If you wanted to create a quarterback in a lab, if you were making a creative player, it would be Austin Simmons. I guess the only thing that you would do for Austin Simmons is you would probably add 20 pounds and not him losing any speed. That is the only difference. Jackson was a little bit thicker runner. Austin's a little bit smoother of a runner. So we'll see. I know that Austin Simmons, he talked about catching a rabbit down in Pahokee in the muck. He talked about that, and catching a rabbit down there is a big deal. It is a really big deal. So this is a guy that can run. This is a guy that can move. So it's going to be up to Diego Pounds and Jaden Williams, Patrick Kutas, Bryson Sanders, Delano Townsend. Those guys on the offensive line, they're going to have to figure some stuff out and be ready to go because Austin Simmons is absolutely in a position to take the Southeastern Conference by storm. In the LSU game, that will probably be his announcement to the rest of the conference that he's here right before Georgia. That is my prediction. By the end of September, everybody is going to be talking Austin Simmons, Ole Miss, as opposed to talking Lenore Sellers or DJ Lagway. That is my bold prediction. Austin Simmons is going to be the dude. So Austin Simmons isn't the only big name on campus this spring. The official account is buzzing about 2 transfer standouts. Find out who next. You know, there's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge. Not so much anymore. I found Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer, and with their all-in pricing, you see the total price up front, no surprises at checkout. So here's why I love using Game Time. With the seat views before you buy, they have no surprise fees and the lowest price guarantee. You can book with total confidence. Their lowest price guarantee means I never have to worry about overpaying and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee. So every year in spring practice, it's not only important to find out what's happening on the practice field, but it's also interesting to know who they choose to focus on. I think in this age of spring practice and kind of hiding depth charts and all of the stuff that we used to look at in spring practice, now you have to pay attention to who are they lifting up? Who are they talking about? And is it somebody that's going to play in the fall? And once you figure that out and see some of the plays on film, all of a sudden it starts to make a little bit of sense. Because Ole Miss, as quiet as they want to be in spring football, they still have to show big plays for social media buzz. You have to play the social media game. You can't get around it. They don't want to, but you have to. And these two players are two players that they are showing more often than not, and in different ways and in different things, they're making pretty excitable plays. The first player is Kewan Lacy, the running back out of Missouri, the transfer. He's from Texas, and he is a running back that didn't start at Missouri. They had some upperclassmen. I think he had some pass protection issues. I'm not 100% sure on that. That is just my guess. But he has gotten to Ole Miss, and all of a sudden you see him on social media about every other day. Whenever they get done with practice today, wait and see if social media puts up a Kewan Lacy highlight today as well. I think he's up to 2 or 3 in this spring, including one where he just refused to go down. This is a big running back that has excellent size, but if you look at his high school tape, you saw a lot of that similar to really tough to bring down and how he was able to make plays as well. This is a guy that has gotten the attention of the Ole Miss official social media account, which was probably handpicked and hand-fed from Lane Kiffin, and that was given to him from Kevin Smith or Charlie Weiss. Kewan Lacy is a guy that right now, as it sits right now, a bold prediction, I'm expecting Kewan Lacy to be the starting running back in the fall. That is my guess based off of what we've seen in the spring. The plays that he has managed to make, the excitement that he has managed to generate. He's had Lane Kiffin talking about him, saying that, yes, he has the potential to be elite. Not good, not even great, elite. And when Lane Kiffin talks about elite, what does he mean? He's coached Quinton Judkins when he ran for 1,500 yards, a record in a single season that was broken by about 300 yards. He is coached on a staff that had Lindell White and Reggie Bush. He's coached Zach Evans. He's coached running back after running back, Derrick Henry. This man knows what an elite running back looks like. So when he says elite, pay attention. It's not a situation to where he is blowing smoke. Lane Kiffin doesn't blow smoke. If anything, he undersells. So when he says elite, you need to pay attention to what is going on. And if he says Kewan Lacy has a chance to be elite, you really need to pay attention to that. So I think that as it sits from that statement right now, and the social media account, all of that, I think that Kewan Lacy might be the starter with a backup of Logan Diggs this fall. That is the starter for the running game. Kewan Lacy, Logan Diggs, and you might have a Shakai Mills night for a number 3 once he arrives on campus. Should be interesting to see, and I'm really excited about that. The second player that's kind of a bold prediction, hot take of how they could stand out, especially with the wide receiver unit as good as it is. You see it all the time. You hear stuff. Lane Kiffin made a point to say our wide receivers are really good, basically. Looking there, he's like, these guys are pretty different. And with Deshaun Stribling and Harrison Wallace and Caleb Odom and all of those guys with the tight ends, I think it's interesting with Caden Lee and everybody on the field with the potential of 12 personnel. I think the number 2 wide receiver has a chance and will be Caleb Odom. The 6'5", 6'6" Adonis, essentially, at about 235 pounds. Every time you look up, they're putting a file on social media with him making contested catch on a back shoulder down the field. Amazingly looking a lot like DK. I don't know if he sprints like DK, but he is a really big body. He might be more comparable with Evan Ingram if we're going to be honest about it. We talked about how Ole Miss seemingly, with the way that they recruited with Luke Haas and Trace Bruckler and Caleb Odom, bringing back a Daquan Wright, with the young tight ends they have. You have a tight end room with 7 or 8 bodies in it right now, which is something going back basically in my lifetime. I don't remember a tight end room with that many functional bodies in the room. Caleb Odom, I know he's listed as a wide receiver, but I'm talking about him as a tight end because he has a tight end body. And the reason I say that, if he gets the number 2 wide receiver, Ole Miss runs 12 personnel. That's essentially 3 tight end bodies on the field. If the outside wide receiver is athletic enough to play wide receiver, you can run some stuff, 13 personnel, 12 personnel, 11 personnel, or 10 personnel type packages at tempo. I genuinely think that is the next step in offense. It is running stuff out of different personnel groupings at tempo to where the other team does not have the ability to match up. You can have that 13 personnel on the field, let the other team go big, spread them out and run 10 personnel type plays, and all of a sudden you've got a huge advantage to where they're playing a lot of base offense, to where you have bodies on the field that can just run the ball down their throat if they go base. If they go big, you have the guys that athletically can go around. That is something that I expect to possibly happen. Now, with Deshaun Stribling, with Caden Lee, with Harrison Wallace, with those players, it's going to be difficult to get there because of the positional versatility that you have. I think Wallace and Lee and all them, they're going to alternate on both the inside receiver and the outside wide receiver so that they can do some of these 12 personnel and these multiplayer personnel groupings going through the process. I am really interested to see. I think Caleb Odom is going to be the number 2 wide receiver. I think Kewan Lacy is going to be the starting running back. And I think Austin Simmons is going to put up SEC Newcomer of the Year type numbers. It's going to be really cool to see, and we'll see exactly how that goes as we go. In our final segment, we're taking a spin around the SEC with some bold predictions. Stick around if you want to get mad at me. All right, let's do some bold predictions around the Southeastern Conference. And I don't think the conference is what it was, okay? Everybody likes to play the death of the SEC. I don't know about that or anything. Because of quarterback play, the SEC isn't now what it was a couple of years ago. You don't have the dudes that you had at the quarterback position. Now, you're going to get there. Arch Manning, DJ Lagway, Austin Simmons, they're all young guys, but I don't know if they're there yet. Lenore Sellers, a young guy as well. Nico Iamaleava is a young guy as well. Georgia's always going to have a dude. A&M's going to have a dude. Marcel Reed, once he figures out the passing game, he's going to be a dude. So John Mateer, Jackson Arnold, all of those guys, this may not be the year for continuity. I think next year, in 2026, it's going to be a bear. But this year is a nice year to have a transition. And I think because this is a transition year, I think LSU is going to be making a coaching change after this season. This is be it for Brian Kelly. I'm thinking LSU at 7-5 or 8-4 this season. I think the defense is going to let them down again. I think that Garrett Nussmeier isn't quite going to be as good as he was with those offensive linemen. And they're still not going to have the running game that they've essentially never had as long as Brian Kelly was there. Now, they may have run for a lot of yards because of Jaden Daniels, but as far as the running back, they haven't really had it. So, bold prediction, I think that after this season, LSU is making a coaching change. And we get to hear all the news about how LSU is looking at Lane Kiffin all over again. It's going to be pretty exhausting. So, next bold prediction. Mississippi State is going to beat Tennessee. I will say that again for the people in the back. Mississippi State is going to beat Tennessee. I'm not saying Mississippi State is going to be good. In fact, I'm at the point of thinking they're not really going to be good, but I think they're going to be 5-7 level bad as opposed to 2-10 level bad. And in that 5-7, they're going to win some non-conference games and they're going to beat Tennessee. That is going to be the very first scalp for Jeff Lebby. So everybody be on the lookout for that. You heard me say about Tennessee losing to Mississippi State. Well, you kind of know Tennessee, even though they have a relatively easy road, they're going to lose 3 ball games this year and not make the playoffs. Their window was last year. It closed. They ran into Ohio State, hit a buzzsaw. It happened. Alabama is going to go 7-5, and somebody is going to throw a brick through Kalen DeBoer's window. That is what's going to happen. Alabama is going to be really, really good in 2026. They are going to be fantastic in 2026. They're going to be absolutely fine. But in 2025, they're not. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're changing quarterbacks. The quarterback that they want to take the reins is Kewan Russell, who is a true freshman, and there's always growing pains there. They've lost a couple of running backs, so that's going to be a little bit different as well. And defensively, they were very hit and miss. This wasn't a Nick Saban level thing. I think Kane Womack is going to be fine on that side of the ball because they can be really good when they're good, but when they're bad, they can be pretty bad. See the Oklahoma game in 2024. So I do think that Alabama is going to be 7-5 or 8-4 and Music City Bowl boundish. That's what's going on. South Carolina is going to be fine, not good, fine. They're not going to sniff the playoffs. They're going to win a maximum of 8 games, and Clemson's going to absolutely drum them at the end of the season. Florida is going to be an 8-4 team. Even with the schedule that they have, they are going to be really good. They're going to have playoff aspirations until the last 2 weeks of the season. They're going to come into the Ole Miss game with 2 losses and lose that game. And then Ole Miss is going to beat them twice, and they're going to lose to Florida State. So 8-4 there. Auburn's going to be better than you expect, than I expect, honestly. Whenever I was thinking about the bold predictions, I think Auburn beats Alabama in Jordan-Hare this year. They are going to win an Iron Bowl, and they are going to win 8 games. That's still probably only good enough for a Las Vegas Bowl or the Duke's Mayo Bowl, but they are going to win 8 games. Oklahoma is going to be plunged in disarray by mid-season when they choose to fire Brent Venables to try and get ahead of recruiting in the transfer portal market. So Oklahoma will be another school that will be hot on Lane's trail as well. We went through no coaching changes in the Southeastern Conference this year. Well, next year, there was going to be a little bit more. Texas is going to win 8 games in 2025. You heard me correctly. They're going to lose at Ohio State. They're going to lose at Georgia. They're going to lose at Florida, and Oklahoma is going to beat them. But that will not be enough to save Brent Venables' job. It is going to make enough to make Steve Sarkisian have to sweat just a little bit. Marcel Reed's going to figure out the passing game, and A&M is going to finish third or fourth in the SEC in 2025. Right on the edge of that playoff line. I do not know if they're going to make it. It depends on if they win their Texas shootout against the Longhorns and how they do against LSU. Those are going to be the two games that really matter for A&M. Let's see. Vanderbilt is going to beat Auburn again. Diego Pavia. It's never too late for Hugh Freeze to get Diego Pavia his Father's Day gift. Plenty of shopping days left for that. And Arkansas is going to be Arkansas. They're just not very good. Missouri is going to be an 8-4-ish, 9-3-ish level team. I do not know about Bo Pribula. And Kentucky, Zach Calzada. That's pretty much all you need to know there. Last year they went Ole Miss in 7. Hopefully Ole Miss can pull off the victory at the beginning of this season as well. And those are my bold predictions around the Southeastern Conference. Hopefully I pissed everybody off with that as well. So thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is kind of why we're the number one Ole Miss podcast out there. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every single day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, and remember, analytics is just the old English word meaning bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.